let's talk about PPP forgiveness as it relates to the wages that you should be including. JJ the CPA here. When we're talking about wages to include with your PPP forgiveness, whether you're filling out the PPP EZ form or the what we would call the long form, the payroll costs for the employers that are paying out wages, as in W-2 only, is simply what did you pay during the covered period. So you really have to break this down and really hear me on this. Really hear me on this, because it seems like a lot are making it harder than it needs to be, only because the SBA has come out with so many rules and regulations, right? But it's really easy. And I'm not saying that because I'm a CPA. I'm being for real when I tell you it's this easy. Whatever your covered period is, whatever the wages are that you paid during that covered period, that's what you're going to hand in. So your covered period should be 24 weeks. I cannot think of a circumstance where you would not select the 24 weeks. So on your application, either one, you're going to show your covered period, and it's the 24 weeks. Disbursement date plus 168 days. Boom. Boom. That's it. Now, if you are a weekly or a bi-weekly payroll company, technically under the 24 weeks, it almost doesn't matter anymore. So in my opinion, unless you're just like, my gosh, I don't have enough payroll, which should be not really the case if we're now including up to 24 weeks of payroll versus 8, you don't even need to worry about that because of the paid and incurred factor. So when you look at the SBA instructions to the PPP EZ or PPP long form application for forgiveness, it's very specific to you about paid incurred, which is just this: what did you pay during that 168 days, even if it's from payroll that incurred before the covered period. So what did you pay? Should be really straightforward. I mean, you got a disbursement date on this date, and here's your ending covered period. What got paid in between that? Boom, should be really easy. Now, if for some reason you don't have enough payroll, well, then you can do up to the incurred. But here's the thing. 1% of you need to worry about the incurred and paid after. So for those of you that are struggling to have enough payroll, make sure you're doing the 24 week and then look at the instructions, because for 99% of you, you're going to have plenty of payroll. The thing to note is that you can hand in this application at any time. You don't need to wait until the 24 weeks is up. SBA made it clear in the instructions. If your bank won't take your application for forgiveness, but you're ready to complete it because you have plenty of wages, well, go ahead and get it all put together, sign off on it, have it ready to go for when the bank is going to accept it. But for payroll, all you're including is what you pay during that period. Really straightforward. And how do you substantiate it? A payroll summary, right? So whether it's from a third-party payroll company or from QuickBooks, you're wanting to know the payroll period that got paid at the beginning of your covered period through the end of whatever date you're picking here. Okay? You want a payroll summary. And if that confuses you, then just stop and just think about it logically. Don't think about it, I'm doing this for the SBA, or I'm doing this for the bank, or I'm doing it for forgiveness. Just think of it logically. Here's my covered period. What payroll got paid during that covered period? What payroll period got paid during that period? And then you're including that. So don't get caught up on, well, wait a second, I got the money on the 3rd, but I did payroll on the 5th. So do I include the 3rd to the 5th? No. If you got, your disbursement on the 3rd and you paid payroll on the 5th, then what was that payroll period that got paid on the 5th? You're including the entire one. So that would be your start date, right? You got paid on the 5th. Go back to the beginning of that payroll period, fast forward all the way until you're putting in application for forgiveness or 24 weeks, whichever's first. And you're then putting in all of that. And really with the 24 week, I mean, given that the payroll was based on 8 weeks, I mean, if you've got 16 weeks, it really shouldn't be an overwhelming factor, because all they want to know is, did you spend money on payroll? Yes. How much did you spend on payroll during the covered period? This much. Or, well, I got this, it's plenty. So you're just saying, hey, here's payroll I paid during the covered period. And then you're done. So that may even lead to where you're not having to worry about, well, now is it the healthcare costs in addition to that? And is it which the answer is yes. And is it the retirement match on top of that? Because you may already have plenty of payroll to not have to then dive into these other questions. But it's only the employer paid portion of health insurance that was paid during the covered period or incurred. So another way to look at it is, you have a covered period, was it paid during it? Include it. If you're up against like, well, gosh, I don't have enough, even in 24 weeks, then you're going to have to see a professional. You're going to have to read the rules and regulations carefully, because for 99% of you, you have plenty of all of this to achieve full forgiveness. So I've got some other videos talking about the rent, the utilities, the interest, as well as the retirement plan aspect that I've had some questions on, but wanted to just contain this directly to the payroll costs. And I've talked about this in other videos. Go to the instructions. I'll have a link in the body of this on what you get to include for the owners. But it's this simple. But go to the instructions, because I'm just going to say them quickly. Go to the instructions. For the S Corp owner, more than 5% owner, it's your 2019 wages divided by 12 times 2.5 if you're selecting the 24-week option. You had to have actually paid that to yourself, but that's the maximum you get to include. For the partners, it's your self-employed income from your K1 from 2019 divided by 12 times 2.5 times 92.35%. For the C Corp owner, it's your wages for 2019 divided by 12 times 2.5. You had to have actually paid any and all of that in those three circumstances. You had to have actually paid it out, but the maximum that you can include is what you actually had incur in 2019. For the self-employed, I've got a playlist. I'll put it in here. It's a playlist for you. For the self-employed, none of this applied to you. Not any of it. None of it. None of it. None of this applied to you. So you need to go to the video that I've linked, the playlist that I've linked in the body of this, because you're just taking Schedule C, 2019, line 31 divided by 12 times 2.5. That's your payroll cost. That's it. You're done. You do the rest of the calculation and you hand it in. You're doing the EZ. So for the self-employed, super simple. All right. Hey, check out my links. I've got links in here to filling out the information related to the PPP forgiveness for employers, for the self-employed, and all the other minuscule things that go along to it. I got videos talking about paid and incurred, owner compensation. So before you ask any questions in the body of this, which I may not get to, go to the playlist, because in the playlist I have a plethora of videos, tons of videos running through a lot of these details. But it's much simpler than you think on the payroll. All right. Hey, thanks for tuning in. I'd love it if you'd subscribe. And then don't you ever forget, you've never met a CPA quite like me.